I recently just saw this video from Patrick Bet-David where he was interviewing Tony Robbins, and he talked about something similar. And so I want to show this video to you and I want to see what your comments are on it.
That period of time, by the way, 22 to 42, if people are in that stage of life right now, it's statistically the most unhappy period because people are trying. They thought it was going to be easy. It's not so easy. They eventually learn, usually in their 30s. Yeah. And then what they learned is, well, not as easy as I thought. I'm not as invincible as I thought. And they have to figure things out. And they're trying to prove themselves to themselves and others. They haven't figured it all out yet. Now, some people do these seasons earlier, some later, but it's a good range.
So 22 to 42 is what Tony Robbins was telling Patrick Bet-David is where people are maybe not as happy as they need to be. And that seems very similar to some of the stuff that you were talking about with me earlier. So what are your opinions of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. That's a huge age range there.
Huge age range. Yeah.
You know, in it through the map of the, you know, Alison Armstrong's work that I've been looking at, she would call that and you got a couple of the names right of the different ones, but she would call that your areas where a lot of it is in the prince stage, which is when you're growing something, you're building out what you're going to be, you're building out your character, who you're going to be, and the business that you're going to be in. And that's just tough. That's just really, really tough work. And she says her age range is a little bit different. She says about 45-ish. Again, it's periods. It's not like it's an age thing exactly, but 45-ish is where you kind of breathe and go, oh, like I've done it. Like I did the work. I know who I am now. I've built what I want to build. Not that you're complete, not that the building's over, but that fear of, am I going to make it? Am I going to get there? Am I going to be a total failure? Kind of goes away by that age. But as a man, how does that resonate with you?
Well, I definitely think that when I was in my 20s, I was 100% trying to find out who I was and trying to understand, you know, what I was interested in, what I liked the most, what I was passionate about, where I could make the most money. I mean, I was definitely doing a lot of kind of searching during that time period. And you know, I probably really didn't really kind of own myself, you know, or maybe start owning myself until I was 25. And then probably, you know, around that 30-ish range, I probably started to, you know, kind of own myself. And so it's probably very similar to
yeah. Did you find at the 42 to 45-ish range, you felt like you could breathe a little bit more?
Yeah, 100%. I'm at 46 today. So yeah, I definitely would say that yeah, things, you kind of just, I don't know what's the word, you kind of surrender to what's happening. Like you've seen enough by then that whatever economy that changes every 7 years, you know, the coronavirus or the .com or, you know, whatever kind of thing that happens, you know, you have enough experience with those things that you're like, all right, well, this is just kind of part of the experience and part of what happens. And so, you know, let's just, you know, kind of go with it and adapt, and, you know, things will change, and there's seasons of life, you know, and so we have to just kind of adapt with the seasons.
Yeah. And it'll move on, it'll pass, and we'll get through that. It's making me think that you're going in seasons of business. I'm thinking about jeans right now with the baggy jean look. This too shall pass.
Yeah, I hate that look.
I know you do. You're very charged about it.
Very charged.
Very charged about it. But I do think, to me though, also the hardest time would be those early 20s, and it's easier until you're in your 40s, and it drops off. So the whole time, I wouldn't say, to me in my experience, it's a fixed thing there, that it's 22 is tough, and it just gets a little bit easier every single year. But there's a lot then too, right? When you are looking on, you know, you were successful probably in one area or unsuccessful in one area, which is schooling's, you know, until about that age. And now you've got this big achievement of some sort of graduation, probably, whether that's high school or college, does not matter, but you have an achievement, a completion. And now you start all over, and you're starting back at the very beginning, and going into the workforce, and then trying to figure that out. And I remember, like, a lot of times, you know, earlier on, or even in my 30s, you know, looking around, and that, like, how did I get here? Do I belong here? Is this where I should be? And I'll say now, I'm 42 now. So right at that magical age that Tony Robbins is talking about, but I don't have those thoughts anymore. I don't have those feelings anymore. What are some of the thoughts and feelings that you had in your 20s and 30s that you just don't worry? Some worries that you had or thoughts that you have that you don't have anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely am I good enough? Are people, do I have value in the world? Am I adding value? Are people going to think that like this is a genuine? This is like I'm genuine. Like I really am, gonna do the things that I'm going to say I'm going to do. And can people trust me? Do I fit in? Do I belong? I mean, those are all definite things that that I worried about in the 20s. So, I'm curious, what would be some advice that you would give, a salesperson today, an entrepreneur, a leader, in order who's it's potentially going through this phase and that kind of 22 to 42-year-old phase, because it doesn't have to take that long. You don't have to just wait till you're 42 to figure it out, right? So you could there's probably some hacks that you can take to kind of, or cheat codes to go faster.
Probably, but the first thing that comes up for me is not about a hack. It's the meaning that we're giving it. I think when I was in that stage, I didn't realize everyone else was having the same thoughts and the same feelings. So you give a lot of meaning to that and if you're not exactly certain about your career path, you're not sure if you're in the right place, and that cost me a lot of angst. I turned down a pretty prestigious job. My senior year of college, I was offered a job. I turned it down. But just the turning it down was so, I mean, it really kind of wrecked me, because this duality of like, what am I going to do with my life and who am I going to be? And the job was, I was offered to be a junior publicist working right under a lady in LA. She was the publicist for Mel Gibson huge. I met her because she was I met her working on a movie with John Travolta, and she was John Travolta's publicist. And so she offered me a job to come move to LA and work with her. She said her business is blowing up, and she was, name dropping everybody, these, A-list celebrities that she works with. And she offered me to come work with her. And I just thought, there's a side of me that thought, this is what I've worked my whole life for, is to get this opportunity. There's a part of me that thought, God, it'll be so cool to tell people what I do. Like, this is so impressive for people to know. Like, people will know that I'm something then. But there was a part of me that thought, I just can't spend my life being a publicist for movie stars. Like, God put me on the earth for something else. And it is not to make a movie star a bigger movie star. Like, that just cannot be my career path. But I battled, because I know a lot of people paid a lot of money for my education. I have a degree in public relations and journalism, public relations, advertising. And, it was for this moment. And then when I get to that I turn it down. So then I went on this whole thing of feeling just completely terrible about myself, and like, who am I going to be now? And this soul searching and this whole path of figuring it out, especially after turning down something that was so major. But it's just part of the process. And I think what's really interesting is we all get to where we're supposed to be, and we think that these decisions that we make are so pivotal for the rest of our lives, that if I don't take this job in LA to be a publicist, it's like despair that's going to happen. And it's not. You are going to end up being who you were supposed to end up being. And there's a lot of paths to get there. And so you don't have to worry about it. There are, there's course corrections the whole way. And so you don't get a job that you think that you really want. And you have the opposite. You really want this job and you don't get the job. Okay. Like, there is another direction there of how you're going to go. Maybe you get somewhere and you don't get the promotion, or you lose a job, or you're laid off, or you end up in a different industry. All of it leads to where you're supposed to be. I ended up not doing that, and I went back to bartending. And I remember very few people. I didn't tell many people about the job offer, only my closest friends and family, because I couldn't listen to the ridicule or like, what are you doing moments. And with bartending, so many, I know my parents were super disappointed at that moment. And I remember seeing other people coming in that were in school with me too, coming in and going and almost looking like, what happened? Like, what went wrong? Like, there's so much in you. Like, what happened that you ended up here? But when I look back on that time, you know what that behind that bar was? It was a stage. I told stories. I learned jokes. I learned how to manage people. If you can manage drunk people, You can manage salespeople. You know, the stories, I practiced the storytelling, that my background in storytelling started at that bar. I think I am so good and at keynotes today, and offered the ridiculous fees that I have for a keynote. It started in that bar. I learned how to read profit margins and how to do inventory and how to run a business because I went to the owner of the bar and I would, count up my tips at night. I'd clean the bar. I cleaned the bathrooms. It was very humbling. I cleaned the floor, mopped the floors, cleaned the ashtrays every single night, cleaned urinals. I did all of this. And I would do that every night. And I would talk to the owner of the bar and I would, tell him, here's how much I made in tips. But I said, but did the bar make money? What do I need to ring for you to make money? Like, how are we profitable? How do you do inventory? And he was like, do you really want to learn all of this? I said, I do. And so he would stay after and show me how to read the books and how to make the books and how to order. And he taught me all of these things on business that became the foundation for everything later. So what looked like this huge failure, right? And this bar was not sexy. Okay. This bar is not sexy. It is awesome. It's awesome. University Pub. It is still there. It is now run by the daughter of the owner that I worked for. In fact, her first night bartending was with me. We worked together. But what happened is in one light, it looked like I had failed. I had this huge job offer. I went this other direction that looked like it was nothing. But what I learned from that was huge. So there are no mistakes. You can't mess it all up. If your heart is going and you're in the right place, would it have been a failure for me to go be a publicist? No, I would have learned tremendous things. I think I would have ended up back here, who I am and what I'm supposed to be. So it's just not as big of a deal as we think it is.
Yeah. So it's believing that everything that's happening is happening for you and not to you. And that this is exactly how life is supposed to be for you. And just maybe, everything that happened up to this moment is what was supposed to happen so that it created really who you are today.
Yeah.
And if people can have that really quantum shift, I mean, that's a huge shift in their mindset that all of these things, all these mistakes that I made or I thought I made, or these life experiences that I felt like I was kind of a victim or took me down a path that I'm not really happy with, that they could just add some gratitude to that and say, well, maybe, because of these moments is because of these moments, I learned this and I learned that, I learned this, I learned resilience. I learned I was put in the right situation, like in your case, to learn how to be an entrepreneur and to learn how to think like a business owner. And it's because of those moments is where I am today.
Absolutely.